the proposal at the last Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting to take to committee the decision to turn the Manchester School District into a department. And given the amount of disinformation, disrespect, the things we talked about earlier, we don't have to visit them all again. But the decision to go forward, 8-7 with your vote, Mayor, to go forward to send it to committee to talk about turning this school district into a department based on the fallacies and half-truths that were being spoken about in the chamber that night was, as I have said previously, a disservice to us. So my challenge to you, Your Honour, is that you declared yourself 2-3 weeks ago when this came up first, and you said in a comment to one of the members, I support this, but it shouldn't come up tonight. I think it was because it had not been telegraphed. But I'm wondering, I'd like to hear from you on this topic. It came as a surprise to me, to be honest, Your Honour, and a disappointment that you voted in favour of, it sounded like you were doing more than simply referring it for discussion. It sounded like you were supporting the proposition to turn this school district into a department. Would you like to address that?
Yes, and what I said the other night was that I think there are a number of questions that remain. I don't know what final form it'll ultimately take, whether it was more of a budget mechanism or whether it was something substantially larger in an entire merger to become a department, which I think creates some logistical issues that warrants a discussion. I've always been a big proponent of more conversation, not less. And if there's a feeling on the board that we should have this conversation within committee, what I laid out was a list of 8 different things that I think would need to be discussed, and and ultimately what the clerk requested and what I requested was some clarity on exactly what they were looking for. If it's simply a budget mechanism where, what the motion that passed in 2001, 55-35, which just gives the mayor and the board more insight into the budget. I mean, there were 4 small sections of the charter that would need to be changed, but it explicitly states within the charter from 2001 that the mayor and aldermen would have a more of a role to play earlier on. I think that's the conversation that you and I had on the phone about the potential process for it. But what I said was I think it should go to committee. I think we should have this conversation. It's something that had been talked about, but I had concerns logistically with how that would work. And what I suggested the other night was if it's a direction that the board wants to take, that there be an effective date attached to it into the future, so to make sure that you could do it with no disruption to the school district or the students within it.
So just to follow up, so your answer, Your Honour, and I just want to be clear. So you're ambiguous with regard to whether it's a department or not, or you feel it should be a department, but so I didn't hear, so you haven't made a decision about how you feel, or you actually feel that the work of this board should be managing a department that ultimately falls under the mayor's office?
Well, nobody has said that there would be an elimination of the Board of School Committee if that's what you're suggesting.
No, but effectively, Your Honour, that's the case, right? I don't think any of us on this board, I can speak for myself.
No, it wouldn't be. The chairman was asked that question directly, and the intent is not to eliminate the board. The intent, as it was discussed on the board, was to have a greater role for the mayor and the Board of Mayor and Aldermen in the budget process, which I don't think that's inappropriate. I would be supportive of a greater role to play.
I just say, Your Honour, with respect, I take a much different view. I don't want to be wasting my time on a board, shuffling things around when people who don't visit schools know nothing about them and can't actually tell the truth about what's going on in our schools when they do know that they're the ones who are going to decide what services our students get or not. I'd prefer to just run for the Board of Mayor and Alderman and get done with it. Thank you.
Sure, and that's a perfectly valid opinion.
The mayor and I talked about this because advantage of my age, I was on the board when it was a it was a department. It was a school department, and you know what? It functioned exactly the way it functions as a school district. The roles of the superintendent are outlined in the RSAs. The role of the school board's outlined in the RSA. We have a system right now where the aldermen have control. They control our budget. They control our bonding. The mayor is chairman of our board. What more can they want? As chairman of the board, that has a lot of authority and already that a lot of districts don't have. Nashua, it's a school department. Jim Dances, I don't believe even goes to the school board meetings. Doesn't have any role. It's not in his charter. It's a red herring. I don't think it changes much of anything. It's just another way to conjure up controversy and keep this animosity, this animus toward our mission and what we're trying to do. And I agree. If you're gonna be an alderman right now with that ultimate responsibility, with even what they have now, budget and bonding, go into the schools and learn about the schools. I had an alderman say to me, I don't want that responsibility. I have enough just dealing with the city, and we are a large department. We have twice as many employees. What more control do they want? The mayor right now could say to the superintendent, some people might disagree with it, and other mayors have done it, I know you're going to present a tax cap budget. I didn't have that. But give me a budget that's got a 2% increase. She's not going to say no to that.
Yes, she would.
No, she would not.
Because she would come before
No, she would
this
not.
board, and Jim would run her out of the room.
No, I hope that wouldn't happen. And I didn't have that kind of relationship with the superintendent when I was mayor. I would sit down with the superintendent and say, here are the parameters. Again, I didn't have the task cap. Here are the parameters of which we have to work. Give me numbers that make that work. So that would not necessarily happen. I know some mayors shy away from that. We have contracts that was unsettled for years and years. I used to settle those contracts in my office. And so would they have the authority now that more so than any other school district in the state of New Hampshire? You don't have a town councilor in Bedford, the chairman of the town council in Bedford, having control over the school district. There's more control of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen over the school district than perhaps any place else in the state of New Hampshire. This is another way to stir it up again, to make the school board the enemy. And again, enough said, but this is so ridiculous that we are in that situation, trying to really salvage the school district and just deal with that. And we have this other issue swirling around us. Your Honor, I hope you take a stand and say, things are fine the way it is right now. It's working well. The control is already there. Let's just move forward and educate our kids. Let's focus on educating our students than all this political stuff that's going on. Thank you, Your Honor.